Be here for the first. Oh
Sorry,
yes.
we're
No,
recording.
I love robot voice. They're the best. Um, I'm going to only be here for the first portion of the recording here today, or of the class today. Whoops. Mainly because I'm just going to be here for the critique portion, and then we're going to hand it off to Eden and Larissa, who are going to handle the lecture and demo portion of today's class. It's going to be great. Cannot wait. Uh, so don't be late.
Oh,
Uh,
geez,
I'm sorry about that,
you
everybody.
did it.
Darlene's like, this is what we paid for. Um, anyway, uh, great. So yeah, if anybody feels poopy, that's totally fine. Thank you, Devani, for showing up and letting us know. Um, Dream Warrior, who is
Who's
this?
Dream Warrior?
Somebody is ready here to fight Freddy Krueger, and I am so glad that they're here to protect me against the somnambulist serial killer with the claw hand. Anywho, so just so you know, oh, you need to change your name and settings. Hi, you're great. Um, so a lot of you, from what I saw, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so you guys can see what I've been looking at.
Do it.
I am really super happy with what I've seen so far. You guys are taking risks, having a good time at it. You got some really good stuff going on here. Don't feel bad if you feel like you sort of underrepresented the number of sketches that you could do. As long as you turned in something, then you are okay in my book. And if you didn't turn in anything, that's still okay. Try and get something in there so that we can give it an evaluation before the end of the week. All right, because you do deserve
Yes.
it, and we want to make sure that you get your due by turning in something, even if it's unfinished or even if you feel like it's sketchy. I didn't really say these had to be anything other than for value thumbnails, really. So don't sweat turning in a masterpiece or anything like that. It didn't need to be. All we really wanted to see was around like half a dozen sketches. And I've got some really good examples here. Some people turned in some really fantastic work. Let's pop in here and see the breadth of what we're talking about. All right, so Alessandra, got some really lovely comments here from your fellow classmates. I gotta say, this is pretty great. You're seeing some really strong work here from Alessandra. They're using the informal subdivision here to sort of frame their work. There's some really good parts in here, and there's some parts here that I would try and move around a little bit more. Um, Mainly, the good stuff here is, oh my gosh, all the main stars of the show, like the relationship between our fun witch character, her boiling little brew cauldron, her nifty little possum pal down here who's turning pages, reading, perhaps. All that is fantastic, but I do have to say that we are still firmly in tangent land, and that makes me scared. When we
Tangent. Yes.
tangent, what do I mean by tangents? Tangents are when we've got outlines that touch each other. I don't think we really discussed that. I didn't do my depth lecture in this class here. I did it in the graphic
No.
novel
Yeah.
class. But tangents have a tendency to flatten the image. They become a little distracting. There are some killer tangents in this example that Alessandra gave us. Uh, Here, there's a pretty killer tangent where the lovely sleeve or cap on the witch's sleeve appears to be touching the shelf behind her, where her hat is literally touching the edge of the picture plane up here at the image. Um, there's a little bit of a tangent here where I don't know, there's a little bit of space here. It doesn't really catch my eye that badly. Um, where the her skirt is touching the edge of the picture plane here, and a little bit of one where the edge of the book here is touching is gently overlapping the edge of the picture plane. All these things could be fixed by just taking the image and like literally reducing it in scale by a little bit. You know, just taking the whole thing and just sort of squishing it down. All you need to do is just give yourself a little bit of a margin. Remember, put all the main bits of your picture within those center 2/3. We're not really making anything really difficult here. We're just making kind of like a vignette. So remember, try to keep maybe like remember a layer of shadow around the image, and that'll help remind you to keep things focused on where you want them to be. iPad maybe. One is better than none. Eden, couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. All right. Here's Alessandra's next one. I put a lot of comments on here, and I beg your pardon for doing it. But this one, this is a bit of a jump back. The first one has a lot more going for it than this one. And the reason why is because suddenly we are redistributing a lot of focal areas outside that center 2/3. Now, I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I want you to see what I would do, taking the exact same informal subdivision that you did, and sort of just redistributing the key elements here. So let me share my my Photoshop screen here, so you can sort of see how I would approach this. Now, first here, let me grab this real fast before any of you forget what the picture is. Okay, so we've got this this clown character, and the story looks pretty clear to me right now. It's like the clown character, it looks a little bit like there are stakes involved here, like they're looking for this lost kid who may not be in any real danger, but a lost kid in a carnival is always a little bit scary. So the idea here, though, is that we've got our clown who is literally on the edge of the picture plane. We've got some perspective issues that need to be addressed. The top of the table really shouldn't be able to be seen that much unless it's at a severe slope. And the star of the show looks to be, I mean, obviously it's the clown, but if so, then why isn't she centered? Or why aren't they centered? You know, we see a lot more of like empty space than anything else. So let me see if I can't remedy that a little bit. And there's nothing here that's, you know, that's not to say that Alessandra did anything wrong, but it could be done a little bit clearer so that we know where to look. All right, so here is the exact same informal subdivision that Alessandra did. I feel like it's a little asymmetrical, and that's actually okay. I don't mind that. But we have a lot more diagonals than we do horizontals or verticals. So let me try and put a couple more in here. Let's see here. Here's one right here. I feel like we need, okay, here's one right here. So we got 3, 4, and let's do one more, 5. And I'm trying to distribute them fairly evenly. One more, let's do it right, more or less down the middle here, 5. Okay, so we got 5 diagonals, more or less 5 horizontals, 5 verticals, and then 5 diagonals going in the opposite direction. Now, again, that's just there to sort of help sort of frame the elements that I'm going to be putting in here in a sec. All right, so first off, star of the show. We need to put in our clown. I'm going to try and put them in more or less. Let me shrink this a bit more. Yoink.
Disappeared.
Oh, it did. I deleted it because I'm a bit of a dope. There we go.
I know. Photoshop.
No, it's just I always do that. All right, so let me lock that here. right. Okay, so this is where all my stuff is going to be, and this is where my little sketch is, so I'll lock that as well.
There you go.
All right, so first off, we've got, I'm going to put her head up here a little bit. Instead of having her look out directly at us, I'm going to have her look a little bit to the side. Again, to sort of, because the kid is still going to be like down here with his, or there with their little lollipop. Okay, so we've got clown. This is like the first clown that I've seen in anybody's classwork that hasn't scared the bejesus out of me. Um, I hate clowns. Well, okay, maybe I hate is a strong word. I'm terrified of clowns, and I have been since I was a child. Um, but but this clown is like the best clown ever. They aren't scary at all. They're like, oh my gosh, am I gonna find the wee lad? Wee lad, where are you? Um, yeah, this is a very pretty clown. So I would absolutely not be scared of this clown at all. She's very sweet, or they seem to be very sweet. Plus, I don't know if you want to do this, Alessandra, now that I'm thinking about it, because it actually makes the clown look a little bit less, I don't know, but it makes her look more like a buffoon, like she's actually, looking in the wrong direction. It amps up the humor a little bit, whereas, not necessarily the drama. So maybe if you're like, well, it makes her look, a bit dumber than she needs to be. Well, then by all means change it. All I'm trying to do is sort of like to sort of show you an alternative here to what we did. I'm bringing her hand up here just to sort of give us a tiny bit of, again, to sort of balance this out. It's more of like a bit of expression, like she's anxious, like oh my, where's the tiny tot? We've got our fun little choker with a little cameo on it. Little kid over here is doing kid stuff.
So Alessandra was saying that she give it another shot. I think part
Okay,
of
good.
the problem
Now,
was that
the
you were
tricky,
placing the stars of the show directly on the intersecting points, directly
you
on
want
top
to,
of the intersecting points.
not necessarily what you want to do. What you
Yeah.
might want to do instead is use the intersecting points to sort of frame what's going on, rather than putting them on top of them or using them as like a bullseye.
Yeah, don't use it
Um,
like a target or a bullseye. I think that's the thing. If you can use it as a guideline for the shapes that you're
yeah,
plotting,
exactly.
that's
Whoop.
better.
So the idea here also is to try and, where does it go? There we are. We want more overlap. Clearly we're at a carnival. And putting in, figuring out where the perspective is going to be a big part of this. So again, all I'm going to do for the vanishing point here is put in a tiny little tick mark, like right in the middle of her, or there. I keep saying her. They're a very pretty clown. I think that's why. Of their earring here. When it comes to perspective, you always want to make sure, is there are certain rules you want to know, you want to follow. Okay, so here's where the horizon line is. If we're looking up at the top of a cylinder, it'll be up here. If we're looking down at the cylinder, it'll be there. And you might think, oh gosh, well that's very similar. And you're right, it does, until you start putting in the intermittent ellipses. that make up a cylinder, like so. And suddenly you realize you're not just drawing ellipses. What you're drawing are the cross sections of three-dimensional objects. So, and they all need to point towards that vanishing point here. And the main thing that determines like where you're going to put, like what the shape of the ellipse or the box or whatever it is you're drawing is the height of the camera. You know, where you're choosing to put that dot. Alessandra, she, her. Okay, great. Alessandra, is that meant to be like a flat table? Like this? You know, is it meant to be eye level to the kid? Or is it, I'm sorry, is it meant to be,
table. It was supposed to be like a flat table with a little bench in front of it.
oh, okay. All right, well, we can do that. Remember, we've got, we're just putting like a little block. In front of another little block. So this kid is now standing in front of a bench. There's the bench. Here's a table. You know, maybe it's stacked with like funnel cakes and sodas and all sorts of horrible carnival food. Maybe like funnel cakes are the best, Caleb. I don't like them. Sorry. Don't mean to yuck your yum or anything. We've got some balloons. Or, you know, maybe we can remove these balloons and put in like stuffed animals, whatever. That's great. You know, it doesn't really matter because those are not the star of the show. We can always replace those later. The trick is that we're putting things in here. We're populating the scene. Maybe put some crowd folk back here, some additional clowns, a couple more, you know, other little kids. But the idea is that, you know, we need to keep in mind where that horizon is. You know, the clown is, you know, meant to be something of like an adult. You know, so if they're about the same height as her, the closer we get to the horizon, the smaller they're going to get until they get to about the same level. If they're taller than her, like let's put a tall mom lady over here on the corner. You know, that's it's going to be pretty obvious that they're a little taller. And you might be thinking, oh, but Caleb, that's, you know, she's the mom lady over there is it's intersecting the side, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, that's fine. Just try not to put too many, you know, just try to avoid tangents, and you'll be okay. You know, the main trick here is remember the star. You know, where is the star of the show? Who is the focal point here? Let me grab my little airbrush thing so I can create a vignette. I hopefully will be able to demonstrate this. And you can already start to see here as I, you know, put kind of like a spotlight onto the main area here, where things are starting to emerge from, and where things are starting to sort of become get pushed into the background. Anyway, does that help us, Alessandra?
Oh, could you repeat that, please?
Oh, the last thing I just said?
The Voss?
Oh, all I said, I asked you if this made sense.
It does make sense. I appreciate it. I think I'm going to try to redo it as a study because I think I'm still struggling with perspective, and that's why it was hard for me to place certain things.
That's totally fine. Perspective is tricky, but it's one of the things that we have to get better at if we want to show if we want to demonstrate the universe in which we live in, even if it is kind of fun and cartoony like this. Here, I want to try and, oh, here we go. No. Okay, cool. If you wanted a good, and I know I'm running long here, if you want a good example or a fun little trick for doing perspective, guys, here's a neat little exercise you can do. Just grab any sketchbook you've got, figure out where everything is moving away from or toward, like a horizon, a vanishing point or a horizon line, and draw boxes. That are moving away from you. Try to imagine that they're forming like a chain and that they're sort of tumbling away in perspective. And the smaller they, the bigger they are, the closer they are to you. And the smaller they are, the further they are away. But the trick is that little vanishing point here is there to sort of help you remember where things are going, and also try to remember to avoid tangents like I am spreading all over the joint here.
That's okay. This is great.
It's basically here to try it. This is an exercise that we do in dynamic sketching.
Well, this is one of the first assignments that they had from the first week was drawing spheres, cylinders, and noodles. So sphere, cylinder, noodles, and boxes. And this was one of the first things.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
If you ever feel like you are still struggling with perspective, that means you need to draw more boxes. That's all it means. Just more, because everything can be reduced either to a cylinder, a box, or a sphere. Easy peasy.
Caleb, do you have time to go over just a few more in the drive?
I do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is Chinema. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Chinema, are you there?
It's a beautiful name.
Yeah, I'm here. It's Chinema.
Oh, Chinema. It's okay. You crushed it this week. I got to tell you.
Oh, thank you.
You did it. Of course. No, you. I'm going to switch this over to the drive because I was so impressed. Whoops! I just shared the same thing. Was so impressed by the level of variety in your value studies here. I want everybody to look at this. It's like, there's a lot going on in each of these little thumbnails, but by putting light in front of dark and then dark in front of light, as Chinema is doing here, you get this really cool illusion of depth. And I feel like it works really, really well to, even if it's super sketchy and thumbnaily like these are, it works really well to sort of establish where we're meant to look. And it takes a potentially flat illustration and makes it really dynamic and fun. There is a slight perspective issue down here at the bottom one with that boxing scene, and I love the boxing scene. I just wanted to, but I did want to do a quick little demo on that again to sort of show how I would, a potential way that I would sort of work that out. Now your informal subdivision again is great. Yeah, you got like four going horizontally, 4 or 5 going vertically. Well, 3, that's fine. And then we've got a bunch of other lines that are intersecting here. Some corners that are intersecting. Did this work, Chinema? Did this help?
Wait, can you guys hear me? I don't know.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
can hear
can.
you just fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it did work. It was actually pretty fun.
Good.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was fun.
It's meant to be, yeah, it's meant to be like a fun way of doing this. It's a way of just sort of like taking the guesswork out of doing these what could potentially be a tricky composition. And I love this scene. I do want to try and see if I can't just have one little go at it. All right, so you've got one boxer, you got the other boxer. I love his sort of like gumdrop shaped head. He's so good. I don't want to change their poses all that much. Because that's pretty great, just as is. I mean, look at that. You got overlap. You can sort of see one boxing glove in front of the other. He's ready to, this one's ready to raise his glove and pound the other guy. Look at that. He's very determined. The only thing that I felt like could be modified is the perspective, because I'm unsure as to where we're looking. As it looks right now, it looks like these guys are giants fighting inside a tiny little ring. Oh, question. What do I mean by a value study? Is there a link to an example? Sure, I'll do one right now here.
You don't have to do one. I have some up right now, literally on
okay,
my screen right now. Okay.
Yeah, sure. But
Do you want me to?
if you wanted,
do you want me to share?
Let me finish this one before.
Okay. Good.
Let me finish Chinima's here, and then Chinima, and then we can move on to the next thing.
Okay.
Because I'm so sorry, I ran out of time. I got so involved in the last one. It was just a lot of fun. Alessandra's fun to draw. Hey, you know what? Any attempt I have at conquering my fear of clowns, I feel like I want to celebrate. So as it is right now, your perspective looks like it's converging on a vanishing point, like way up here. Like this is where the edge of the arena would be. And we're looking down, and these guys are like literally like 4 times bigger than anybody in the crowd. And are they meant to be giants?
They are not. I
They are
kind of
not.
rushed that. Yeah, I rushed that last one.
That's okay. But here's what, if we're looking up at them, for example, if we put the vanishing point like there, for example, what we could do is we could take like, okay, the corners of the arena and move them here. I don't know why it's like octagonal. It just is. Feel free to move it any way you like.
It's an ultimate fighting ring, so it's not. It doesn't have to be a box. It can be like a big cage. Yeah.
That's it. It could be a big cage.
I have a cousin who's actually a professional ultimate fighting champion. Not champion, but like an ultimate fighter. Yeah. It's crazy.
What?
Yeah, crazy. No, it's like through marriage, but
Larissa.
Yeah. Wow, no, he's insane. He did MMA.
And then here's all their people are like looking up going,
you should be standing up going, ha!
Yeah, some of them are like, whoa, sweep the leg. You know, and maybe they like go, maybe there's like, it's like a proper like theatrical arena that like goes up with like vomitoriums. Vomitoriums are the names of these aisles with the stairs.
Of course, you would know what they're actually called because you're a theater guy.
The theater nerd.
Yeah, theater nerd.
So yeah, we got people, and they get tinier as they get up there, but the place is packed. So we need to put lots and lots of little swirly little dots for all their tiny little heads. And this guy's like, whoa.
This is exactly the
And
thing that I wouldn't want to do with all the people in the background, but
it doesn't,
because
well,
it's
they
good.
don't need to be perfect.
Yeah.
They just need to be suggested. Here, I'm gonna, yeah. So literally,
Suggestions.
remember that those Tarzan pictures that we saw last time. They don't, every single one doesn't need to have a perfect little noggin with an expression on their face. You can gesture them, especially if it's meant to be like a vignette, like this one is.
It's like scales on a dragon. You don't have to draw every
Exactly.
scale. You just draw a few.
No. And because the thing is, if you draw every scale, you kind of get lost. It actually, doing things simply like this can kind of help, believe it or not. Anyway, so this is where I would probably take this, is something like, figuring out, okay, are we focused on the fighters? Are we focused on the crowd? I'm thinking we're focused on the fighters for the moment. So, we could change it if you wanted to. All we would need to do is sort of like for example, if we wanted to, remember the 22 panels that always work by Wally Wood, we could always ink these guys out so that they're like fighting in the foreground. We can't even see their faces anymore. Because it's not important. What's more important is the fact that we are seeing this guy down here, who is the star of the show, going, "Oh, come on, guys, what are you doing?" What if it was like a little scene in your fun little comedy comic or story or whatever, and this guy is going to his very first boxing match, and he's like, "This is lame," who knows what. But the idea, it's the same basic idea. It's literally the focal point can be wherever you want it to be, and all you need to do is use those 4 values to sort of get people to look where you want them to look, and use perspective as well. Now you can do a down shot like this, but if you were, I would make the fighters more like this.
Oh, you make them really small?
Which isn't, well, if you were to put them in a realistically sized arena, if you wanted to focus on like the cameras and the lights and stuff like that, if it was like an establishing shot, for example, I don't know if I think if a boxing match is meant to be fun and dramatic, you would want to start in the middle of the action. So your first one is definitely a stronger choice. But if the idea is like we're meant to be sort of like zooming in, today I went to my very first boxing match. It was dumb. Something like that. It would literally be like this guy, maybe we're looking at the back of his head with all these other people behind him, and he's like, That's the international symbol for getting mad.
Yeah.
Like his head is smoking. But you get the idea. It depends on what is meant to be the star of the show. So hopefully that helps. Does it help, Cheetah May?
Oh yeah, it does. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for doing such a fun job on these beautiful drawings.
Yes.
All right. Now, I put a bunch more comments in here. To be honest with you guys, I'm really quite impressed with everybody that turned in their work. Again, I feel like there is some really, really great stuff here. If I had questions, maybe do another sketch or do another study of your sketch. Dana Friedrich, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. For example here, this beautiful, wait, I need to stop sharing and then share a new thing. Like Dana here, we've got this beautiful, very scary little scene with this mysterious, creepy character in the foreground, a fire, and what appear to be some characters here approaching a cave, and there's these weird tendrils of shadows, that are reaching out. Imagine what would happen if the if this spooky character were like literally all in black, or that their head were up here and their shoulders were down here, like we were literally looking past them and that they were taller and more imposing, or they wouldn't even need to be taller. It would just look taller because the camera would be, our perspective rather, would be placed somewhere else. Okay, so literally there's a ton of really great ideas that you guys were playing with here, and I'm just so impressed with what everybody's doing. I will continue to do more evaluations as we go on, but I do want to hand this over to Larissa at one point because color is a bear, as Eden said earlier, and I want to give you guys as much time as possible to work on this. Anybody have any questions before I disappear?
No questions. Thank you so much, Caleb, for your work and your demonstrations. And it's really great. I always love watching you draw. I think everyone does too.
Well, thank you so much for letting me draw on your drawings, guys.
You're gonna be back next week.
I will be back next week. Don't worry, I'm not going too far. In the meantime, enjoy coloring. And I'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Caleb.
Have a good time.
Thanks.
Bye.
And smoke bomb. I'm out of here. Poof.
Okay. Well, that was great. So I love watching Caleb draw. All right, so I'm taking over. Woohoo! I'm not used to taking over, but I'm going to take over. So what I want to share with you is, first off, he had mentioned the tonal value study, and I wanted to show you some tonal value studies and how you could do that before you begin the color. Okay. Actually, yeah, let me just share. You guys, he talked about the basic tonal value and how you can put that together, but I think I just wanted to show you really quickly about how to do studies. And first off, what I'll say is, I know that this class is super compressed with the amount of information that we're giving you, and it might feel a little intense at times. I totally get that. This, yeah, Janet's like mind-blowing, like brain exploding kind of a thing. You can take this course again, or you can actually go back and look at the recordings. I'm setting it up so that you'll be able to access them. It's a lot. But this is really just the basics of how to go from, giving you the principles of what you need to understand in order to be a stronger draftsman, to take on illustration projects with a little bit more understanding of how to approach them. You've learned the basic fundamentals of drawing three-dimensional shapes. I won't say you understand, but you were given the information, to how to draw figures and how to place them in perspective layouts, and this process, these last few weeks and next week including, it's really intense. In fact, we could do a whole class just on the last 3 or 4 weeks alone and spread that out into an 8 to 10 week class, which is what I am actually considering at this moment. So if you don't make something perfect, that is okay. The point of the whole experience is that you're trying, you're learning, you're exploring, you're doing new things, you're gaining skills little bit by little bit, and you're just getting a little bit further in your path to mastery and understanding these things. So how long will you have access to the recordings? I am going to make it so you will have access to the recordings for a long time. I'm trying to fix that in my website. I just figured out a way to do that. I don't know how I'm gonna roll it out, but I'm working with someone right now so that you will have access to the recordings for longer than just this period of time, this short period of time. Okay, so that's information for you guys. As soon as I know, I'll roll it out. Also, before I go into sharing, I wanted to just drop this form, feedback form really quick in the chat. And if you guys can kind of click and open it up and then maybe answer the questions later or throughout the course, whatever. This is, if you haven't been in Discord, this is the feedback that I was asking for in Discord. And this is going to help me and our instructors kind of move forward in what we're going to be doing in the future, how we can improve our courses, our offerings, and just getting better in general. The feedback is really valuable. So your time that you take to fill that out honestly and completely is going to be really appreciated. I know, Jody, I get lost in Discord all the time. I almost don't even go in there anymore just because I get so lost. So if you've been wondering where I've been, forgive me. But if you answered in Discord, you don't have to answer this form because I already have your information down. So thank you, Brianna, for taking the time to do that. Thank you, Levi. I know Levi put in his feedback too. I appreciate it. So if you haven't, go ahead, put it in this form. If you have, you're good. Thank you. All right. So after that, I have actually two things that I want to share with you. So it's almost, the hour. And somebody had actually mentioned like these 2-hour classes are like a long stretch. Could we get a 5-minute break or something in between? I just want to see a show of hands who would like a 5-minute break at the hour. Sarah. Just like one person. Okay. Well, I mean, I just thought I'd ask. So, I can, or just you, everyone else is here for the long haul. Sarah, you can take your 5-minute break whenever you want. You're always free to step away. Okay. Yeah, you do anyway. I know the other day I was in 3 Zoom meetings back to back from, I kid you not, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I felt like a zombie. I definitely needed it. All righty. Okay. Share slideshow from beginning. Okay, so total values, if it's worth painting, what did I say? If it's worth painting, it's worth planning. Okay. That's the first thing I want to just talk about really quick is what we're doing, these sketches. These sketches are all ideations. These are all just explorations of things that you have in your head that you want to go through before you get to a final illustration. Maybe in the past, you've just gone straight to your final illustration and you get frustrated as to why it wasn't working out for you, why it wasn't strong enough. You had maybe issues or problems with whatever, with the characters, with your layout or whatever. Maybe you've never attempted it before. That's great too. These are, then you're coming into it from scratch and you're understanding that a final illustration should have several processes in the pipeline of completing it, in which you explore and problem solve before you actually get to the last step. Okay, so these are all just part of planning. Okay, so I know Caleb talked about this already. Your 4 tonal values, light, white, black, light gray, and dark gray. So I'll just go over this really briefly. That the tonal represents the volume and mass of form and the space between solid things. And he talked about the light on light, dark on light, dark on dark, and dark on light kind of a thing. So these are still things you want to be thinking about. So you're taking this information and you're just kind of putting it on top of what Caleb talked about before. Okay, it's the visible appearance of our environment as revealed to us by light. That's what tone is. All things have a value between black and white, shadow and light, and objects are separated from one another in our field of vision because of the value. So understanding how to design and maneuver your lights and darks in your actual composition will help in manipulate the objects on your picture plane so that you can see, so that the viewer sees what you want them to see. Okay. So here we go. 4 tonal values. You already understand this. You've gotten this already. The simpler the presentation of the subject, the better it will be pictorially. So I had mentioned this last week to try and keep your tonal values really clean and organized and not painterly. And we'll kind of see why, because when you can organize it, it'll bring clarity and appeal to your images. Okay. So I think he mentioned this before, but definitely these are from Loomis's 4 tonal value plans, and the way that you structure your image overall in the tonal values will, kind of also go into mood and the mood of your image. So if you took like Alessandra's drawing with it was the clown, right? And you did 4 different tonal values of that, you can totally change the mood from something intense and dark to something more light, playful, just by exploring the different tonal values given here. If you were to use a white background and use grays and blacks on that, it's going to have a totally different feel than something that where everything is really dark, where you have number 3, where you're doing everything on a dark gray background. Okay. So these are some areas, this is a little demonstration that I did, ways of showing the focal point over, or the area, the focal point, which is also should be the area of greatest contrast. So we talked about before about using Loomis's informal subdivision to plot your objects on the composition. And in the same way that you are manipulating your shapes in the composition, you can manipulate your tonal values to enhance those focal points, which should be your area of greatest contrast, because the area of your greatest contrast in an image is where your eye is going to be drawn to. So if you have white area surrounded by dark, if you have a dark area surrounded by white, that area of greatest contrast is what your eye is going to be drawn to immediately. And then the way that you lay out your darks and lights throughout the image is going to manipulate the viewer's eyes throughout the image. And I have a whole slide on how to think about manipulating or being mindful of ways to manipulate the viewer's eyes through your composition. Okay. So these are just some studies that I pulled off the internet's ways that tonal values can be used to structure a composition. And these aren't necessarily studies of one particular thing, but these are studies that show how you can cleanly define white, black, dark gray, light gray in ways that will enhance your focal point. Okay. So let's see, like putting this figure here in black against a light background, and then even framed by these gray trees in the background elements. This creates a draw to this point here. Okay. This character here in the foreground, black, with the white and gray, that all the values are right here. And then utilizing a really cool organic shape of the clouds to frame the house in the background. So these are ways that you can be mindful of when you're creating your tonal values in your drawings. So this is one of my students from my digital painting class a few years ago. She had 4 characters, and this is her study of how to lay out, how she laid out the tonal values. And in that course, we did 5 values instead of 4, which was easy enough because you just go 25%, 50%, 75%, and then you have 100 black and 0% is white. So the way that you approach it can be something like this digitally, or this is another one where what I was talking about before, you can definitely change the mood with your tonal values. And also, because this is all about lighting, this goes into how you would light your scene. And this artist was playing with not just the tonal values, but what type of light was going to be utilized in that scene, where the light was coming from. So you see how the light is kind of breaking through here. We've got a knight that's fighting the serpent in the forest. And he chose 3 different lighting keys. So a dark gray background, and then a light gray background, or almost like a white one here. and a middle gray background, and how he played with the lighting elements on each of these. So I don't remember which one he ultimately ended up doing, but you can see the way that you can explore these is really fun. And I think David Steenblock is here. David was in my class. I don't know if it wasn't that semester, but it was a different semester. But this is similar to what we do in the digital painting class that I was teaching. Okay, let's exit. Okay, so then let me show you the next one, which is, there we go. Okay, so well, before we get into color really quickly, and actually what I wanted to do was I wanted to I was going to do a color demo of Caleb's artwork that he did last week. So I was going to go through that process of how to create more of a completed image. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with that one. So that's going to be really interesting and wild and fun. Okay, so how do you go from start to finish? Okay, so he's already talked about composition. This is kind of recover this again. Compositions, the use of artistic judgment in assembling the various elements of a picture to produce a harmonious whole. A picture is a series of relationships between objects and the space around it. So yes, it's just stuff that you're arranging on your canvas, right? And how do you arrange them? That's your composition. And it's the choices that you make in where you're putting things on the pictorial space. And the pictorial space are the edges of your picture plane, edges of your canvas, the edges of your paper, and how you divide that. So we've talked about Loomis's informal subdivision. That's one way that you can divide it. Obviously, there's different ways that you can divide it, but that's one approach that we offered you to as a way to kind of jump into creating compositional divisions. Pictorial design is when you are arranging those spaces and contours, and that's what you did last week in your thumbnails. That was pictorial design. Okay, so I have just a couple of photos here that I wanted to kind of illustrate to show how you can, how you as the pictorial designer, as the artist, can inform, or as I said before, manipulate the viewer to look at what you want them to look at. Okay, so this is just a photo I took when I was in Alaska. I think I had gotten off the boat. It was an Alaskan tour. Anyway, this is just one of my photos I think that I took. So in this photo, I've gone ahead and kind of messed around with it, edited it, and I pushed a blur on the background, and I enhanced the color of the woman's red hat, and her little red hat, and how things are much crisper and in focus around the area draws our eye to her first. Okay, versus something like this, where you can still see the red hat, but now what I've done is just blurred everything else around it, and I've increased the intensity or the saturation of the building, that peach orangey building. And now that becomes more of the focus in that image as opposed to this one. So you can see the difference in the coloring. So when you are building up your elements, your value, your color on top of your sketches that you've drawn, that you've pictorially designed to have a focal point, these are the things that you want to be thinking about when you enhance that focal point. Okay, sharp contrast, maybe with sharp edges. You can also lose edges and get a little bit softer around the elements outside of it. So not just because you've drawn everything really detailed doesn't mean that everything needs to have that intense detail. Just like Caleb was showing you before with the vignette, and how he basically would just take this gray color, this shadow area, and just kind of blur out things on the side. That's one really easy way to create this kind of soft blurring effect, whether it's with tone or whether it's with your edges, so that it creates a spotlight on wherever you want your focal point to be. Okay. So what are the things that make a successful composition? There's at least three things that I feel, okay? It has to be appealing. So what is it that makes it appealing? The character, the emotional impact is another thing. That's the third thing, but the things that make it appealing are your subject matter and the way that you create, the way that you arrange this composition in your design. And then the last thing is the emotional impact. And so as a picture book illustrator, you're drawing images that are telling a story. And the more likely your viewer is to engage with what it is you're doing, the stronger you should be working at to, I think I said that backwards. The more of an emotional impact that you have on your viewer, the more engaged your viewer will be. That's what I meant to say. So in infusing your work with some kind of narrative and some emotion is going to bring the viewer into the image and have them drawn or feel it like it's appealing or have it leave an impact on them. Okay. So I'm just going to show you some slides. These are from some picture books that I love. David Wiesner, he's a Caldecott Medal winning illustrator, and this is from most of his books are wordless, they're just phenomenal. But this is Tuesday, and so the book is about just one Tuesday. This is what happens one Tuesday in this town. I'm going to break down this illustration for you. So floating frogs. Okay, so with the lighting, you can see that it's kind of lit by the moon because it's night. But notice the color is blue. Okay, so if you're doing something like a nighttime scene, it doesn't have to be black. You can use blues and purples, indigos and things like that. The lighting that you would use would be a cool lighting from the moon. You can see the moonlight is shining because we see these cast shadows from these frogs on these lily pads here. Okay. Now this is a double spread. So if you're doing an illustration, if frogs aren't floating, then your home is lame. Yeah, no kidding, Lauren. If you are doing an illustration just for an illustration's sake, that's great. Fantastic. If you're doing an illustration for a picture book, like I believe Sarah Steinberg was, and you're doing a double spread, then that means that there is this thing called the gutter you want to be mindful of. And that just means that this is where the middle of the page or the middle of the book would be. So you can see how this has nothing in this middle section of the illustration because that's where the binding of the book would be. Okay. Okay, in terms of other things, let's take a look at this, how our eyes jump across and move across this picture because of the way that the composition is laid out, and the way that the darks and lights are handled, right? So first off, anytime you have a character in your composition and they're looking at something, our eye will usually look at that character and look at what they're looking at. Okay, so our eye will go to this frog here. Okay, our frog here, but this one is the main one here because it's the largest. Dark, light, contrast, the most area of contrast is here. We look where he's looking at this direction. So all of these visual, actually, can I do this? I can probably do this here. Yeah. Yes, I can. I just have to remember to get rid of it when I'm done. Right, so we look at the frog and he's looking in this direction. Okay, they're all floating. So we're all kind of imagining, this is just a moment in time, but we all are imagining that if they were that they're not just floating, they're actually probably hovering and moving. So we get the feeling that they're kind of moving in this direction, but our eye goes in this direction because they're all looking at this, okay? It goes from here to here. And then look at how we have these elements where this object here takes up all the space and it lines up with these elements here, okay? The house, all these diagonal lines are kind of coming this way, right? We also have some really strong vertical lines here, okay? And whenever we see a vertical line, what happens? It bumps us into something else, which our eye looks at and then follows, and then comes back, okay? So following this line here, and it goes to here, and oh, look, okay? So our eyes kind of follow around the image based on these lines that are in the image, okay? Lines, objects, and some other things that I wanted to talk about are borders, not necessarily borders, but things that stop your eye from leaving, okay? So one thing that makes a composition really strong is that there are elements that are keeping your eyes interactive with the image. Your eye doesn't leave, your eye stays, because any place where there is a like something where an element, any place where you might leave the image, like at the corner, no, look, our eye is drawn back in here. Oh, look, my eye is drawn back here. Coming around here, this draws my eyes over to here, which leads my eyes to over here, which leads my eyes to over here. Oh, look, my eye is drawn because of this leg is going this way. And oh, but look, there's this visual element that's coming here. We have this element that's coming here. And our eye just stays in the picture. Okay, it's kind of crazy, but I'm going to show you a couple more. Okay, and I have to remember to not save these in there. Okay, this is from Jumanji. All right, let's break this down. No color, just tonal value. But what's the focal point? Okay, focal point are the kids. Kids, darkest area, surrounded by light. And notice all the things that are helping to frame and drive our eye to these characters, right? We have this gigantic tree, okay? This gigantic tree shape is literally an arrow drawing our eye to the characters, okay? We have this framing element of this tree here. We have the framing element of these columns here, which basically act as, what you're doing is basically framing your subject matter and saying, hey, look at me. Look at me. How can I make you look at me? Well, I need to frame you, okay? This tree here has a diagonal element that draws my eye there. Even out here, we have the edge of this corner of this tree here is a diagonal that's drawing our eye to here, okay? We have this path, this light path drawing our eye to here. Even the way the light is coming across the page, we have these shadows, which also create another frame. The shadows of these characters are literally falling back, but they're also drawing our eye to the characters there. And then we have this huge element, this statue that's framed here. Look at this, where the leg is. How the leg comes out and it's pointed this way, okay? All of these elements, are so many elements that are keeping our eye engaged in this image. Okay, we come around here, we come back in here, we go there. The bird, look at how the bird is overlapped here, brings us to here, brings us to here. This bird here, oh look, the wings coming in here, brings us back in, and we come down here and boom. So it's kind of crazy, but if you, oh yeah, Eden says the horse does have the white of the birds helping it pop too. Yeah, so this is all about the compositional elements and then the darks and the lights. And this is really like next level. Maybe it's a lot to think of, but these are just things to keep in mind because it's all pictorial design. It's all, you know, you're creating this world from your imagination on a page. And you can see how the way Caleb had revised and done those draw overs, it's really just, if you need to nudge something a little bit more this way or that way, if you need to nudge something so it's a little bit smaller so that the edge of it isn't touching the picture plane, if you need to nudge something so it's not in a tangent, these are things that you have the power to do because you're the artist, you're the designer, you're creating this world from nothing. And so that's all you do. It's pretty powerful actually to be able to kind of manipulate and create these worlds on a page, you know, just like that. Okay, This is also from Jumanji, and this is really interesting because in this particular part of the story that like this child is leaving, but you know, you don't really see him. We see just a portion of him, but the greatest area of light to dark is kind of like right here, this whole area. So in this case, this is more of a, we do see him eventually. This is kind of the thing where it's a discovery of something. And so that's what I want to talk about too, is that you can have a focal point, you can have secondary focal points, third, you know, focal points, and you can think of this getting a little bit more involved, but this is when you are thinking about a hierarchy of what you want your viewer to see first, and then what you want them to discover later on, okay? But look at the framing elements are here, the way that he's framed, the way the staircases are kind of drawing our eye to there. It's really interesting. All right, so I'm going to show you Kadir Nelson. Kadir Nelson's like my all-time favoriteest artist in the world. So take a look at this. So what's the first thing that we kind of see is we see this slave here, this gentleman here. And let's take a look at how the way that he's drawn and how he is framing all the action that's within here, okay? So first, the largest character on the page. So we see dark against light, okay? Kadir Nelson, if you're not familiar with him, he does a lot of beautiful oil paintings, and a lot of them have a lot of these gorgeous blue skies. This is from the Abraham Lincoln book. All right, this frame here frames this character here. We have this hand on the bag, which frames up here, and then we have, look at this, the way that this cotton is planted, or this cotton is drawn. This one is directing our eye here, and this one is directing our eye here to this character here, to this character here. And we enter the image here basically, and we follow through until we get to here, the slave owner. So that's not the focal point, but that's something that you want to see because this is looming. This is ever present, okay? And so the way that he created this composition is really masterful because of the way that he's showing the emotional impact of the laborers and what they're doing and what they're working and how they're being watched. You know, this child on the woman's back. Okay. All right, framing elements. Okay, we are entering in here, and then we see Abraham. And then of course we are looking at this child, and we're looking at Abraham, who's looking at all these people here. Okay, dynamic, diagonals, framing. Obviously he's the focal point, but this is another good rabattement. Is that how you say it? Just the color of the clouds and the way that those are done, and a nice radiation. And then this is a type of image where the horizon is low, obviously, because we don't see the horizon. If we did, we would see all of the people on the boat. But what we're doing is we're getting an upshot. We're getting an upshot of Abraham Lincoln. And so in this image, it's supposed to feel like, you know, there's a certain kind of sense of feeling when you are looking up at a character as opposed to looking down at them. And I think focusing on his hands. Okay. All right, something more fun. This is David Shannon's. I think I can't remember the exact name of the book. If I Were a Pirate or something like that. This is the cover. Okay, so we see this child, light against dark, okay? Light against dark, but this is a really symmetrical composition, okay? He's framed by the jacket, which is almost like a triangular thing here, but then we have the sandcastle here, okay? We have the characters that are looking, the bird, these weird-eyed pirates that are all looking down. Even these guys off on the cover, on the edge, are looking down. And we have all these elements of even the arms that are drawing our eye here. And these elements here, which draw our eye here. And then these elements here that keep our eye in the picture. Oh, look at, there's my thumb. Okay. All right. So key points, ideation process, which you've done, your thumbs, okay? Talking about layout, composing, storyboarding, and lighting. We're gonna do a little bit, I'm gonna do this part really quickly. This is also David Weisner, and I'm just gonna show you the process that he had for this book, Art and Max, okay? So developing the characters, placing the characters on the page, and the process in which he went through to make this particular image work. So it takes some time sometimes, you know, to get it just right. If you're doing, you know, client work, then definitely want to take the time to do several iterations. But in these images, you can see the way that he has played around with moving the characters just from one point to another. This one doesn't necessarily work because even though the characters are really active, they're not clear. Okay, they're silhouetted against each other, so their silhouette isn't as clear. Whereas this is a better silhouette, but there's a lot of empty space. There's a lot of places where the eye could leave the image. So he's still navigating with moving the characters around, but he also needs to figure out how to keep your eye in the image. And so he ends up adding these elements like this thing here, this record player, and ends up solidifying this one here. So this has the same feel as these other ones in terms of the characters, but what he's done here is he's really worked with, notice these things here, these elements here, this phonograph, adding these elements here, which keep your eye in the image, okay? We have this movement here of the character. This draws our eyes in here. This character is looking here. He's looking here. He's looking here. We even have this character down here. These characters down here that are looking up. And this long, low, very low horizon level. And then this is the final one. Okay, and so here's another fun thing is that you can use mountains, you can move clouds to enhance your focal points, or, you know, and that in some case you can create it so that you're leaving space for your text. But in this case, look at how he's weaved the clouds to create light versus dark, dark versus light. Okay, so pictorial design is where you are getting the creative control of your forms and space to increase the effectiveness of your subject matter. And the whole point of doing what you're doing is because you want it to be seen, you want it to get noticed, right? And this is just going to help your work get noticed. So this is how I've used rhythmic lines in my artwork to guide the viewer's eyes. And these are some illustrations that I did a while ago. But I just wanted to show you some examples of how I used rhythm in illustrations. Let's see what I said. Does your eye travel from point to point? So this, and the point of this was to make the eyes travel around your, is there areas of strong contrast? Do you want to make sure that there are areas of strong contrast in your focal points? Elements that direct the viewer's eye to the focal point. Does your eye stay in the picture? Making sure that your elements are keeping your viewer's eyes in the picture. And now I'm going to show you just the process, and then I'll do a demo. Okay, so one thing you want to be doing is thinking cinematically. Did we talk about this in this class, Eden? I know that was in graphic novels. We didn't necessarily talk about cinematic. No.
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, so thinking cinematically just means that you're thinking in terms of like what a movie director would do, and instead of what you would see on a stage in a theater. Okay, So if you're sitting in the audience in a theater, what you would see, everything is happening right in front of you. Everything happens, you're seeing everything from one perspective. But cinematically, that means that you have a camera and you're running around and you're going in and out and you're zooming around and going up and down, telling a story from the perspective of wherever you are with the camera. So thinking cinematically just means that where can you place yourself in the scene. Okay. So here's some thumbnails of some ideas that I was working on. I ended up choosing the top right one and going over, when you're creating sketches and you want to try to get out as many as you can. With the informal subdivision assignment that you did, you were working on just trying to arrange those things in one particular way. But typically, if you're going to work on an illustration idea, try to get out all those ideas, as many as you can, and develop them kind of the way I showed you David Weisner did for his picture books. Getting the bad stuff out is good, and you want to keep pushing through the iterations and the ideas that you have. Okay. And it's often a good idea to do that so you don't fall in love with the first one. Yeah, if you still love the first one, that's great. At least you've explored, 5 or 6 different ones after the fact. Okay. What you're going to do now, this is what you're going to do now, is if you have a thumbnail that you like in the exercise that you did, or if you didn't do one that you like, then you can do another one. Okay. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your thumbnail and you're going to enlarge it. Okay. You're going to enlarge it and you're not going to redraw it. The reason why you want to enlarge it and not redraw it is because you've already worked out all those pictorial elements in that little thumbnail that you did in that little sketch. And redrawing it means that you're taking all those elements and then, trying to duplicate it again. So you're just going to take your thumbnail that you've done, your little your little rough sketch that you've done, and you're going to blow it up. You're going to enlarge it. And then from that, you're going to go on top of it and clean it up. Okay. Cleaning up and reworking that particular drawing so that you're not having to reconfigure anything. Okay. So in that sense, what you want to do is you want to clean up things like the characters in the scene. You want to clean up the background elements, and you want to try to nail things down. So drawing things in a more tighter way. Okay. So in that particular drawing, what I did was basically just, you can still see the thumbnail underneath it, but what I'm doing is trying to clean up my perspective. Okay. And if you're working digitally, and you can use perspective guidelines, like in Adobe Autodesk Sketchbook has perspective guidelines. Photoshop has some, but they're not as user-friendly as they are in Sketchbook or Clip Studio Paint or Procreate. But what you want to do is utilize those to help to clean up your characters and tighten things up. And when you know your perspective or your point of view, then you can add those perspective lines too. So you want to lock that down and correct as much as you can and adjust things as much as possible, but still try to stay and adhere to your thumbnail. Okay. All right. So when you get into tightening up, what are you doing? You're cleaning up your characters, paying attention to anatomy, construction, making sure that the expressions are really clear, making sure that things are large enough so you can see them. One thing that I often would do is when details are too small, it's hard to see. So try to exaggerate things to make them a little bit larger so that you can see them, just for clarity. Okay, so the idea is to bring clarity to what you've done up until that point. Okay, and the final line art, that's when you'll take from here, you're tightening things up, and if you're working digitally, you're putting all your work on a different layer, and you just continue to clean up your line work and make sure that whatever details that you're adding are helping to enhance the story. So on this particular thing, this was just a scene from my life. as a mother of 2 young kids at the time, and just a typical afternoon. And I think this kind of resonates with a lot of people, because if you're a mother, you've been here at one point in time. You've had to give your kids a bath and you've been exhausted, and you just know that that's the time that you can sit because they're sitting and they're not going anywhere. All right. So what you want to do is add things that help. If it doesn't help, then get rid of it. Okay. Then you want to play around with color. So I'll show you some ways that you can do that. Basically, you can take your sketch and then do different, like the way that we did the thumbnails, the tonal thumbnails. You can do color thumbnails. Okay, so this wasn't too different, but I think I was just playing around with the intensity of the coloring, whether I wanted a warm background or a cool background. And I think you can't really tell much because I had already had a strong idea of what I wanted. But and you also want to play in your lighting. And I think this is the lighting is first, right? The tonal values. So you play in your lighting and you get your colors next. And then you work and build that color, and then you just continue to render until you're happy with it. Okay, so is it that simple? It's just render until you're happy? Yeah, pretty much. This particular illustration, I used a pastel brush, and so you can see some kind of actually, I think it was a brush that I made. I wanted to have a little bit of a texture on it. So yeah. All right, so here's some thumbnail drawings and the development of the thumbnail drawings, and then how they get from clean to color. All right, so storyboarding the scene. I think I just want to show you these really quick. I want to make sure I have enough time for going over the demonstration. These, oh gosh. I think I have these in here because I just want you to notice the lighting and where the eye is going to, and all of the visual elements that I talked about before. I want you to notice them in these images from Tangled, and how all of the elements are drawn to. We first see the big fist because that's in the foreground, but then we are absolutely drawn to this guy here in the center. I can't remember his name. And lighting and how staging, framing, light versus dark. Okay. Alrighty, so now let's go into it. Exit, escape. No, discard. All right, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh no,
ahead.
Lauren, you go first.
I was just wondering, what were all the points of this sketch it out? You kind of went by it a little bit quickly, and I was just trying to get that down.
Oh shoot, I can go back. This part?
Yeah, all of this part. Cool. I'll just screenshot that.
Yeah, screenshot that. So it's going to show the process. So you're going to thumbnail it. You want to think cinematically. You want to remember where your focus is. You want to blow it up, meaning you're going to enlarge your thumbnail. You're going to clean it. And you're going to tonal value it. And then you're going to color it. Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. If you've already, you can clean it up and then do the tonal values, or you can do the tonal values on the thumbnails, which is fine too. And I think you can kind of do it however you wanted to do it. And I think that's what we were doing, is doing the tonal values on the thumbnails. Okay, Eden, do you have a question?
I was just curious if when you were talking about that bathtub one, did you do it digitally and then paint it traditionally, or you painted that digitally?
Oh yeah, no, I painted it digitally with a pastel Photoshop brush.
Oh, okay. Well, I just know that you're a woman of many skills, so I was like, oh, you did this in pastel? Wow.
No, I didn't. I actually love the look of pastel, but it's super, super messy.
Oh yeah.
Super messy. Okay. So let's jump into this. Okay, yeah. Flynn Rider. Thank you, Janet. I always forget his name. Funny story about Flynn Rider. I think the artists at Disney, when they were working on trying to come up with Flynn Rider, like they basically like took all the photos of like all of the movie heartthrobs and they put them on the wall and they tried to like mash all of them up. Like they, you know, Brad Pitt or whoever you think is handsome. Like they just like Chris Evans or, you know, every handsome man they had at the time that they made that movie. I think that what they did was they had them all their images up on the wall and the character designers were trying to pull bits and pieces from them, and that's how they came up with Flynn Rider. Okay, so the process of enlarging your thumbnail. So taking Caleb's thumbnail here, and what you want to do is, actually I'm going to go back a couple steps and show you what I did. Okay. There we go. All right, so here it is. It's small. It's a thumbnail. And how do I know it's small? It's a thumbnail. Well, it's small on my image, but if I go into, if you're doing this digitally, and I'm doing this in Photoshop, and we go into image, and then we go into, oh wait, file, no, edit. Yeah, sorry. Image size. Okay, I'm going to image size. Okay. So notice that this is 8 by 10 inches. So, you know, that's roughly 8. That's the same like as paper size, but look at the resolution. The resolution is 72 pixels per inch, which means it's not there's not a whole lot of pixels per inch. That means that I'm not going to get a whole lot of detail on this image if I wanted to color it. Now, if you're going to do this for like just the web, sharing it on the internet, and you're never going to print this out, it's great. You can keep it at 72, that's fine. But if you're wanting to print out your work and you want to have a lot more detail in your work, then you want to go with a higher resolution. So I'm just going to switch this up. You want to go to like 300 dots per inch, but I think just because of doing this demonstration, I'm just going to keep it at 200. Which will give me more pixels per inch, but it won't make the file size so big. So if I look down here, the doc size 1.33 M, you can see how the image size was 10.2, is now going to be 10.2 megabytes. It was 1.33 M. So you're seeing how the larger your image is, the more data it takes to make it. Okay, so now it's going to make it bigger. All right. And what I'll do is I'm going to just size this down a little bit so that I have some area on the outside edge to play around with color. And then I'm going to just fill the outside border with that. All right, so how would one take this sketch and go to the next step? Right, so basically I'm going to take this. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I'm going to lower the opacity on this image just so that when I draw on top of it on this layer here, that I'll be able to see my lines cleaner. I'm going to lock this layer here so that I don't accidentally draw on it. I'm going to lock that layer there too, so I don't accidentally draw on it. And then this is the layer that I'm going to draw on. Okay, so Caleb already did a really clean sketch for me. He said it's really rough, but it's pretty good. It's got, you know, all of these elements here drawn in. And I'm going to do this in less than 30 minutes. So it's going to be ugly dirty. Okay, but this is what we're going to do. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning these elements up. And whatever this is, I don't even know what this is. Maybe that's the funny thing about these things. It's like when you draw these elements and you don't know what they are, you just know it's something. Okay, so I'm going to, oh, and I remember that I'm not going to draw all the way out to that edge. I'm just going to draw to here. Okay. That looks, I don't know, what is this, a building with a window or something? Maybe it's a window. Okay, so I like all of those things. I'm not going to do a whole lot there, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean up. I'm probably just going to clean up one of these characters. And this is Kate Kate. Okay, so you're going to take the time to clean up your characters. And oops, just so you know, I get nervous drawing in front of people. And Marshall Banjo does too. So when he said that he gets nervous drawing in front of people, I feel better. Okay, so I'm gonna have Kate looking down. Oh. Oh man. And this is why I hate drawing in front of people, because I make mistakes and it is never perfect. But you know, guess what? No one's perfect. Okay, so you want to solidify your character's expressions. So we're seeing the underside of Kate here. And I'm almost like afraid to actually show this to Caleb when I'm done, because I think he might feel like I butchered his characters. Yeah, I need my determined book. Yeah, more determined. Okay. But not super intense. Underside of the nose. This. Okay. All right. So really big, cool hair. And okay. I think those aren't his ears. Those are like headphone things.
Yeah, he has,
right?
yeah, because he's like into planes. So it's like those old school plane.
Right. Okay. That's good. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I don't want to make him look like Dumbo or anything. That would be bad. Okay. Now, here comes a super fast, clean sketch of these characters. Does he have something in his hand? He has something in his hands.
Jayla said, do you have any tips on making sure your line art has life? I struggle with my drawings losing energy when switching from the sketch to line art.
Oh, gosh, you know, I think that's the thing is don't like zoom in and be like super tight and like try to get everything super clean. I think I mean, you want to clean things up, but I think you want to also try to be a little loose with stuff, I think.
I think too, when you like are drawing with a pencil or a pencil tool, like you have this ability to get a little bit more line weight than like a lot of digital pen tools will do. So it can end up like very monoline, which like there's nothing wrong with that. That's definitely a style. But I think there typically tends to be more line weight in sketches just from you naturally figuring it out than like in inking. And that's just something I saw in my own work because Caleb Cleven used to always say that my work looked stiff. And that was like my big thing was always like, oh, how do I make this not look stiff? And I think line weight and like C curves, like doing more rounded curves really helps.
Yeah, that's for sure. That would really help. I think line weight is a good thing to think of, to keep in mind when you're drawing, to make sure that your line has a little bit more vibrancy to it. Now, obviously, so another thing too is that you can think about like, okay, is my line work going to be part of the final art? Is it not going to be part of the final art? Think about that. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be pretty messy, but I want to show you because I want to get to the color part. I have okay. And the sign is back there. All the way back there, and then we have this water tank back here. Okay. And ground. Alrighty. Okay. Let's see, right? There we go. All right, so now we got color iterations. All right, so what I'm going to do is play around. I'm going to lock this, and play around with different. Actually, here, no, I'm going to make this smaller. I did this wrong. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about color this way. Sorry. Okay, we're going to make this, unlock that, and we're going to make this a little bit larger. Okay. So this is ultimately already pretty big, right? I'm going to copy this and this. I'm going to duplicate this. Put those on the same layer, and I'm going to duplicate that. Okay. So now I have 4 versions, right? And I have my final version here. Nope, that's my final version there. But I'm going to take this, and now you can play around with the color on top. And then Danny did this in the color painting color and light class. But what you can do is, let's see, if I take this and do like, I'm just going to do like an overlay layer on top of this. An overlay, or no, I'll do a multiply layer. Okay. That's good. Yeah, all right. Now I'm going to switch to a different brush. I'm going to switch to just a big round. This one right here. Hard round brush. Okay. All right. So now what I'll do is playing with color. Okay. I'm going to choose some colors that I think that I might want to use in this. And in terms of like color palette, and now I'm thinking that it could be kind of this He's got like a dusty dust bowl kind of a feeling to this image. I'm gonna probably keep it more in the oranges and the blues. Alrighty. So those are some colors. Alrighty. This is a multiply. So if I take this and I color on top of this, because this is a multiply, you can see how I'm seeing through the image. Okay, so you can play around with different like sky colors on each of these. Maybe even like this kind of the sky here. Okay, and I'm being really rough with this because I'm just playing with like the type of color that might work with this. Clouds, maybe I'll go more orangey. I want this to be bigger. There we go. No, that to be lighter. And we'll make this a little bit more yellower. And these are the clouds in the background. Okay, I have 15 minutes. Fun. Okay. Cape Canaveral's got like a brownish coat thing there, and I can vary that up depending on maybe this one's a little bit more blue, some of this one more the greens, not greens. I'm just changing this ever so slightly. Maybe get that a little bit lighter. Okay. Pants, denim jeans. Okay, denim jeans, maybe dark, maybe some blues there. And maybe one grays here. And maybe a little bit lighter there. Right, so you can see how I'm varying each of these. This is one approach. This is not something you have to do. You can actually do it one by one, but I'm just trying to do it really fast. And I don't know if he actually has colors for these people already. He probably does. I don't want to use blue. I want to maybe stick with warmer colors on. That's too saturated. And maybe there we go. Okay. And then let's try that sign. I don't know if doing a red sign would work. No, probably not. Let's keep it. Maybe even more gray. Oh, I'm not even going in the purple areas. I don't want to go in the purple areas. I want to stay more in the warms. Maybe a yellow sign? I don't know that. The pink sign. Okay. So basically, one aspect that you can do is playing around. I know that Danny in Danny's painting color light class, he does this in a totally different way. This is one way that I approach it. So you can kind of go through and create these different thumbnails for yourself. Okay. And then when you find something that you like, then you can say, all right, well, I like this particular image and I'm going to use this particular, color scheme. for what I'm doing. Let me make this one like this. And let me give this guy a little bit of a lighter shirt color here. Okay, and then I didn't even do her pants. I need to do, no, actually. Okay, let's say that I like this one. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take that one. I'll do this. I'm gonna, the color is on a separate layer. I'm going to Control Shift E. There we go. I basically pasted all the images on one layer. I'm going to copy this. Nope, I'm going to copy this. Copy, and then I'm going to paste it on its own layer. Okay, and now this will be my guide for this. Okay, so I have 10 minutes. All right, so how do we do this? Where's my line art? My line art is here. Okay, so I'm going to keep my line art on the top layer, and I'm going to, here's my color rough right there. I'm going to make a new layer under my line art, line wrap. Cool. Okay, and this is going to be my flat color. Okay, so one way that I've been doing color, because I'm doing a comic, is I've been doing flat color. Just to clarify, we're doing 4 times color roughs and 1 final color painting. You can, yes, absolutely, Sarah. The idea is to go through the exploration process and find something so that you can do a final color painting, okay? And do it as to the best of your abilities, all right? Just changing major compositional elements is, wait, what did you say, Eden?
Basically, they were asking, we were talking about thumbnails before and how you were like, don't change your thumbnail a lot. And the question was, does fixing object placement count as redrawing our thumbnails? And I said, as long as you're not changing any major compositional elements.
As long as you're improving it.
Yeah.
You know, work to improve it. Is that
Because
right?
sometimes you just have to, like, my thumbnails are typically pretty loose, so I'll just have to refine a lot more when I blow them up.
Okay. Alrighty, so if you're doing Clip Studio, if you're doing this in Clip Studio Paint, there's this really awesome handy dandy thing that's a lasso tool that fills everything in, which is really the bomb, but that's not what this is. Alrighty. I'm gonna make really quick. All right, yeah, I'll just do it like this. Okay, so I'm gonna just take that color here, this color that I chose. I made this color, and the color here, actually look at this. This color is going to be different. Oops. This color is going to be different than the way the color looks on the tonal value. Okay, it's darker. I actually want this color. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to fill everything in. Okay. But I have to bring this up here. No, cancel. And now I have this layer is all my color. I'm going to lock this layer. It's a little digital painting, fun stuff. Now what I'm going to do is, see, I can only color on that layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this color here, and I'm going to draw my cloud in.
Thinking about it.
What's that?
Oh, yeah. Did they hear you?
Okay. Eden has a friend.
Sorry, it was my.
That's okay.
Sharing my office.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I got that color in now. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Also, I'm gonna keep. Actually, I'm gonna work from the background to the foreground. Okay, so I'm gonna use a magic color wand and just capture this color that I plotted in here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a fun brush, and let's use a fun brush. Ooh, yes, let's use The Woodland Wonderland by Retro. Let's see, which one should I use? Rough Fill. Let's try that one. This is a good one. Okay, so that's my color. I'm going to choose the lighter top of the cloud color. Since it's more of an orange, I'm going to go lighter, but now I'm going to shift. I'm going to shift my color from where it is here. If I go towards yellow, that means I'm shifting my color warm. If I'm going towards the red, which is actually going, you know, if this is a circle, it's going all the way around. Let me go get the color wheel. There we go. Okay. This makes more sense because now you can see the wheel. All right. This is the color that I have now. I want to make it lighter and I want to shift it warmer. So I'm going to go towards warm this direction. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit lighter. And now I'm going to take this color and I'm going to lock in, because I want the tops of this clouds to be kind of light. Okay, and this is a really cool texture brush. It's really fun. And oh my God, I only have 5 minutes left. Fun, fantastic. I can't do this as fast as Pascal Campion can. So now I'm going to go and choose a little bit lighter and go up a little bit higher and get the tips of that cloud in. And now I'm going to just kind of color pick this and lower a little bit opacity. Okay. Fun. Now what I'm going to do, let's say I'm done with that. Okay. Now I'm going to do this bottom part down here. I'm going to block in this area here. And because I'm blocked that layer in, that works. And I'll get that in there too. I don't know if this is a window. I think that this is probably a window or something like that. So what I'll do is I will take like a window color like this, and then I'm going to lower the opacity to like 29%. And then I'm just going to, oh, there we go. Now it's a window.
Jayla asked, should we try not to blend our colors too much like the last assignment?
No, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
If you
I
want to blend
figured
your colors, yeah, absolutely. You can totally.
It's
blend your
all
colors in.
about the mood or your style you're going for.
Okay. Now I've got the background. I'm gonna just, I have 3 minutes left. All right. So then what I would do is I would color everything else in. Let's say, here's one fun thing that I can do is digital painting. I'm going to take a new layer. I'm gonna use my lasso. And I'm going to color, I'm going to create a shape for this character here. Fill it in with some ridiculous color here. Okay. Lock that layer. Lock that layer like that. And then I can go in and I can pull these colors here and block them in. Okay, without, see how I'm using big brush and big painting movements without having to fill things in. Okay, that color. Alrighty, so this is one way of coloring and rendering, getting your colors down. Okay, well, let's say, okay, we have like 1 minute left. Oops. Let's make this here. So that's one approach to putting your colors in, okay? And you want to make sure, see, I'm just putting my colors in, but I want to make sure that I go back and I look at the tonal value when I'm looking at the, oh, where did it go? Where's my tonal value? There it is. Okay, so when I'm adding my shadows and my lights to it, I want to make sure that I'm adhering to the lights and the darks in this. So let me do that really quick. Just hang on 1 minute. Stay with me. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, make this smaller. Okay. There it is. There it is. Okay. So for my shadow, here's one fun, easy way of doing the shadows is I'm going to make a layer. No, I'm just going to do it like this. Sorry. Okay. What are you doing? Yeah, no, I'm going to take a multiply layer and I'm going to choose a shadow color, a bluish purplish color here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where all the shadows are in here. And I'm going to, because this is on a multiply layer, I'm going to lower the opacity of this multiply layer to about 45%. And now what I can do is I can just paint in my shadows wherever they are, based on the tonal value that Caleb drew. Okay.
Are these just Kyle brushes you're using?
No, in fact, if you want these brushes, I have a link to where you can get them on my Instagram.
Perfect.
It's an affiliate link, I have to admit, but these are amazing brushes. There are all kinds of really fun, cool ones. Okay, so then that's how you do the shadow. And then if I wanted to do any highlights, what I would do, this is a multiply. Stay with me. I know I'm 1 minute over. Please forgive me. Multiply shadow layer. Okay, and then if I wanted to do any highlights, so we get an overlay layer. And I'm going to name that overlay layer. And that's now I'm going to choose my lights. I'm going to choose like a lighter color, like a light yellow or whatever. And when I paint my color on top of there, it's going to lighten things up. Oh, that is like hideously green. I don't want it that green. Oh, and I have to reduce it down to about 45%. Okay. So this is one way of approaching rendering, doing flat color, doing your shadows on one layer with a multiply shadow layer, and doing your highlights on another layer with an overlay highlight layer like this. Using big brushes to paint in, using large layers, large sections of colors, using, of course, if you're not doing this digitally, you can't do any of this, but you can still approach it in that same way. Okay, that was really fast. Are there any questions? What's due next week is go ahead and explore your color for your thumbnail, okay? Make sure you have a good thumbnail that you like. We're gonna go through the file folder again, make sure everybody's got some notes on their thumbnails, okay? Develop your thumbnail to a more of a cleaned drawing, okay? Clean things up and then play around with the color and then begin your color process and play and have fun with it, okay? Just explore the color process and then do a finished illustration. A finished illustration. If it's not complete, that's okay. Just do your best to explore the whole process of what we've gone through today. And if you can end up with a finished illustration, that would be fantastic. That's what I would love to see. But I know that this is a lot of work, but if you can do it, that's excellent. Okay. That's it, you guys. I feel a little anxiety because I feel like I turned on the water spigot and gave you so much information. But this last week is just a lot of stuff. So, all right,
a lot of
y'all
people
good?
really liked it. Yeah, a lot of people were saying the whole time while you were talking that they found it really informative and helpful. And I think you went over some, good tips and tricks for illustrating.
Well, thank you for saying that, Eden, because I draw and I don't hear anything. So, all right, you guys, good luck with this assignment. Have fun with it. We look forward to seeing your work next week. Next week is the last week. So please be here and we will see you. And yeah, will the homework assignment be written in the drive? Yes, I will write it I will put it in the drive for you. Okay. Thank you for asking. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
I should have left more time for that. I kept just so much information that I wanted to give them.
Oh no, I think you did. I think you did good. It's this class, yeah, I think we just pack so much into it.
It is. It is a lot.
Yeah, I think
so much.
I think we could split it up into 3 separate classes almost, but
Maybe I will. Let's see.
I sent you a link. Hopefully you got it for all the Discord. It's like on a Google Drive. I sent you to the OC Art Studios email.
Oh, hold on one second. Hold on one second.